The bike gives me freedom in the sense that it's such a simple companion.
Frontiers is pushing into new terrain, a new category.
Frontiers to me is just something new.
It's an exploration, an expedition.
Like something that's unknown, it's expansive. Everyone comes to this space in their own unique way.
So that was really alluring for me to see people just having fun.
It was this way of racing and being competitive, but never having to look at a result.
This light went off like, holy cow, like there's something here.
We've had a really challenging year in 2020.
Roller coaster of a year a bit.
Curveballs.
All of a sudden, we have no racing this year.
It is uncertain, but it is how we grow, as we push ourselves into the unknown and then we react.
Well, 2020 was quite the year, wasn't it? And at the beginning of the year, we all had lofty goals. I started my season with the launch of the Wahoo Frontiers film, where I had big plans and ambitions to race all the key gravel events around the country. I had retired from pro cycling on the road and was ready to enter gravel. As the year went past, we all learned that it was time to adapt to something new. For many of us, finding a new frontier. There was countless people who discovered cycling for the first time. And for those of us who have been lifelong cyclists, it was a time to embrace and discover a new and different way of riding a bike. And that's what the Frontiers is all about. In 2020, there were 5 Frontiers films, 5 different athletes, but probably only 5% of all the footage shot during the year was actually used in the film. So in this longer form film, you're going to be able to see some unused cuts, some different shots, hear different commentary, and it'll really round out what the entire Frontiers production is all about. Okay, wait, let's pause this. This is my Frontiers video, and I watched this video for the first time again the other day, and it really took me back to where I was at this place in time. The idea behind this was a camera was set out in the barn. I did not know this was happening, and they told me to grab a beer. The camera was rolling, go out in the barn and say whatever you want. You know, I had known that I was gonna stop racing for, the first time really in my life. Making the announcement in this video made it all real. We're over 12 months past that point, and I still go back and watch that and think what a beautiful point in my life that I was able to close one chapter and open another. My name is Ian Boswell. I was born February 7th, 1991 in Bend, Oregon. And since the age of 7 years old, when I first learned how to ride a bike, my life has been defined by 2 wheels. I'm sitting here now in my house in Vermont in mid-December 2019 and entering a new phase of my life and a transition into something completely different for me. It's been a roller coaster of a year a bit. Personally, I had a crash in March that I hit my head and has changed the course of my life and has changed the course of my career. And more than anything, has made me really reflect on what I am as an athlete, who I am as a person, who I am as a partner to my wife now, Gretchen, and where my future in this world lies. My wife's from Vermont, so moving to Vermont was something that I never had specifically thought about moving here by myself. Owning property is something I've always wanted, and owning our barn's maybe bigger than I had anticipated having, but yeah, just having like the freedom of being in a rural setting is something that's really desirable, and the sense of community and really just the like-mindedness of people in this area is something that I relate to, and something that made it easy to move here. And once we did move here, it was easy to fit in.
Lay on down and I hit the lights. Close my eyes on a quiet night. Half in a dream and asleep in till I hear little drops on my windowsill. I know that sound. And smell of daunting rain. She moves, smile with her face. She is the storm.
It's funny, the first night that I spent with Ian, we spent a lot of time talking, and we talked a lot about like silly little dreams. And one of the first, I guess they're not silly because we're here, but one of the things we talked about was having a bed and breakfast, like buying a van or RV or something and traveling around, which hasn't happened at some point, but we've done a lot of other traveling. And so I suppose this place came along and it felt like something we had talked about from the very beginning of our relationship.
You know, following this crash, to realize that, you know, the world is, you know, it's incredibly beautiful, and to sometimes slow down is very important. We have a pork loin with potato and Gretchen's roux barbecue sauce. That'll be tasty, and then just some steamed broccoli. You gotta get your vegetables, and I love vegetables. Gretchen and I have been talking about making this for a while. I wasn't part of it today because I was occupied, but she made her first tiramisu. Delicious. Bro. I love cooking. That's one thing I miss in Europe. Is you can't.
What would you say is your reason for retiring?
There's no question my reason for retiring would be my crash that I had in March.
Peloton today. Ian Boswell at Team Katusha, probably the worst off, and he'll be kept in overnight and today.
Following my crash, I had a very turbulent few months, partly because of the crash and just how that affected my brain chemistry, but maybe more so due to the fact that I wasn't able to do what I love most in this world, and that's ride my bike.
I think I've certainly accelerated his retirement, like the process of him getting to retirement. Sometimes makes me feel a little bit guilty, and at times also makes me feel really proud.
I was motivated to join the World Tour because it was my dream. I mean, I wanted to race the Tour de France from the age of, I don't know, 10 when I first watched the Tour on TV. That was where I wanted to be, and that's what I wanted to do. That was like my overarching goal from a very young age, and of course there's steps along the way to reach that level. But in my mind I was like, I had to race the Tour, and yeah, I did it one time, finished, and that was, yeah, really a childhood dream come true. I feel like the step I've made to walk away from pro cycling is like the first step towards the rest of my life. I think a lot of riders are transitioning into this new scene because it's more fun. Riding gravel already is super popular, especially in North America. It's exploded in the last 2 years, and I think next year is going to be, the level of competition is going to be higher than it's been, and I think it'll continue to grow over the next 5 or 10 years because, like I said, the fact that anyone can participate, and you see more professionals who even are racing in the world who are still participating in other gravel events. The Tour de France is always going to be there, Paris-Roubaix is always going to be there. I don't think, and I'm walking away from road cycling with a very good relationship with it. I think a lot of pro cyclists walk away somewhat cynical towards the sport, and I loved my time there. I still love cycling. I'm still very much a fan of the sport. But there's a new culture of this gravel racing that anyone can participate, and for me, that's really inspiring. So after my Frontiers video, I was obviously all gung-ho, ready to get involved in the gravel season. And finally, it was time to head out to Colorado to get together with the Wahooligans.
So happy we came to Boulder, escaped the winter of Vermont. So happy I booked my trip for an extra week to train here.
Yeah, I got to meet the rest of the Wahhooligan riders. I got to meet Stetina, met Colin Strickland for the first time, Amity Rockwell, Heather Jackson. It felt personally very much like going to the first World Tour training camp of the year, when oftentimes I would show up and think that I had done plenty of training and was ready, and realize I was very underprepared for what was coming, and gravel was a lot more serious than I had thought. Our first event of the year was Old Man Winter, and what a Old Man Winter it was. It was actually Colin Strickland's first time ever riding in snow.
Crazy day for me. Old Man Winter 1, Bike Racers 0.
One of the other things I did when I was out in Boulder, Colorado, I went to the Wahoo Sports Science Center, and I did my first ever VO2 max test.
Stay on it, don't get bogged down, come on.
Pete and I were side by side.
They didn't tell me I was doing a ramp test after I was 3 IPAs in last night, so.
And I actually got a pretty big confidence boost out of that because I had a higher VO2 max score.
Say hello to my little friend.
It wasn't until I got to Boulder and started speaking more with Pete, I realized that he was still training like a World Tour rider. And thanks to Pete for ruining gravel, but he's set up an entire generation of riders here in North America who are pursuing gravel as their full-time career and passion.
There's at least 2 riders in this group that are going to walk down this or pedal down this open driveway here. Or maybe just one. Yes, indeed, Mr. Peter Stetina, your 2019 Canyon Belgian Waffle Ride champion.
Belgian Waffle Ride for me was when that switch really started to flip. It was like this light went off, like, holy cow, like there's something here. I think gravel's a lifestyle. There's a lot more to the bike than just exercise. It is the exploration, the freedom, the thinking things through out there on your own, and doing the same thing in the same protocol in the same races for over a decade too. I mean, it becomes standardized, and I think it's important in any job or any passion to keep it fresh and do something new. And for me, this was a bit of an outlet to just enjoy what I originally loved about cycling, which is like the community and the coming together and just a badass ride. And it was an enlightening moment when I saw that, this could actually be a real thing. Like, just enjoy cycling in a more pure form.
3 minutes medio.
The weekend's been good. It's been pretty Vermont weather here in Colorado. Got a bunch of snow.
Only the driver needs to see.
Oh, and are you scared about the snow?
Terrified. I'm terrified.
But it's been fun. It's awesome to actually get all of the Wahoo Frontier athletes here in Boulder and get together, because I didn't know most of these athletes. You know, I knew Pete Stedman from Racing on the Road. I'd met Amity Rockwell last year at an event in California, but I'd never met Colin, never met Heather Jackson. And yeah, it's cool to actually come together and like start to feel like this gravel project is actually happening. I'm actually kind of in this now. Pete's a competitor. You know, I know that he is approaching this very differently, like with a very clear goal. Like, this is performance oriented, and he's here to win. And that's awesome. You know, he's owning that. He's not afraid to share that he's in this to, you know, to treat this like, you know, a high-end elite pro athlete. And that's awesome. And, you know, I think there's a really good chance that he's going to win a lot of events this year.
And then
what races do you want to win this year?
all of them. I want to win all the races. I want to ruin all the gravel. I'm training full. I mean, I'm very adamant that I'm not on a retirement tour. You know, I'm still competitive. I'm still physically in my prime. I'm 32 right now. I am deadly serious about training and racing these races, but just not being isolationist about it anymore. Growing up in Boulder was unique. A lot of people come to Boulder to be the pro, and I grew up here, so it's like I had a different set of friends and all that. And it's, there's just a whole lifestyle mountain community around it, and the whole health food scene, and yeah, it just kind of all flowed together, I guess. We got a lot of dirt roads, so even as a kid growing up, I was riding my road bike on the dirt roads above Boulder in the mountains. So kind of learned to hone the skills there. You wouldn't really just ride a mountain bike on the dirt roads.
This is my second time to Boulder, Colorado. It's a cool town, it reminds me a lot of like Bend. Living in a rural setting now, it does seem like a big city. Like it's not, but there's stoplights, which are becoming more foreign to me. I think what we have with the Wahoo Frontiers athletes is just a group of athletes, and we are brought together through Wahoo, but we're not a team, and it's to a large degree, completely gravel is still an individual sport, and there can be a case when, Colin and I work together to, catch Pete or vice versa, or maybe they're trying to catch me, but we all have our own incentive to perform individually, and I think any sort of team tactics develop on the road with the people you're with, and they're not necessarily tied to the partners that bring you together. But to come here and just hang out with these guys is definitely good for me to build some relationships. The more time I spend around these athletes, the more I realize I have a lot to learn about it all.
Frontiers is pushing into new terrain, a new category. It's an exploration, and it's Western. It's gunslinging. It's you do you, I do me, and it can be cutthroat. It can be supportive. This is the new frontier of my career, so I'm really happy to kind of be a part of this project.
Basically, when I see somebody wearing masks, it says, "I care about you." And I'm like, thank you for being considerate. So I try to do the same thing.
Before you know it, spring was here, and we all added a new piece of clothing to our kit. And it was a difficult spring for many athletes. I personally felt incredibly fortunate that I'd retired from professional cycling, because there was a lot of uncertainty for so many athletes. You think about athletes who are on a contract year, you think about athletes who are preparing for the Olympic Games, you think about older athletes like Sarah True, who is our next Frontiers video, who are thinking about potentially retiring at the end of the year. and all of a sudden the rug was pulled out from underneath their feet.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it's more than just my story, considering the point where the world is right now. So we're all facing a lot of uncertainty about the future and just trying to stay, present in the moment, trying to anticipate our next steps.
Yeah, and through COVID, I think we've all been a little bit lost because usually, we're traveling all around and racing.
It was a weird time for an athlete. In February, everyone felt like they were gearing up for what was a normal season, and before you know it, racing was all put on hold and we all had to find different ways to get out and stay motivated and stay fit.
Admittedly, in the middle of the summer when things were just looking completely uncertain, I was not super motivated to be in race fitness. So I used the opportunity to ride the mountain bike more and work on the Spartan trailer, living space. Somehow it's worked out.
So on a skill level and on a life level, I feel like I'm regaining this connection back to the sport of why I'm doing it.
We really see that people who truly love their sport continue to do it every day because they do it for reasons beyond just the performance goals. They do it for themselves, and they do it to inspire the next generation of athletes following in their footsteps.
I go up in water and I just go free. You get to see things other than the black line at the bottom of the pool and just enjoy swimming. I don't think there's a single professional athlete who ends their career and thinks, I've done everything I possibly could do. I think as athletes, we often assume that there's this predictability. I think we all buy into it, thinking if we control things, if we do things exactly right, we're gonna get everything we want. It's such a beautiful myth.
Nice part of it, this thing of it, or just the truth of it? How do we want to walk that line? Yeah, being married to another pro athlete, it can be challenging.
It's his COVID mullet. The sad thing is I kind of like it by now. It's not too bad. It's a little sexy, what can I say? He's just ignoring me.
Our job every day is basically to get the most out of ourselves physically, and then the rest of the time try to recover as best as possible. So it's hard because both of us are in the same state of fatigue a lot, but on the upside, we know what each other are going through. Whether or not that entails who does the dishes after dinner or not, it's another story, but yeah.
It's human.
Sarah, best described as a draft horse. All she wants to do is be hooked up to the plow and just work constantly.
What I love about triathlon is it's this balance between three sports where you never really get bored of one because you're on to the next one, and there's an ebb and flow in terms of you feel really fit in one, the other two might not be as good, but a couple of weeks later it changes, and it's really dynamic. That's what's kept me going for so many years, is that there's just so much to it.
She really just likes to work and she enjoys the process of training. And to that aspect, what motivates her is just getting out the door and exercising.
I love going out and having sessions to do the feeling of accomplishment at the end of the day. You know, when you've been able to check those boxes. I love being outside and, you know, challenging myself in training and seeing what more I can get out of myself on a daily basis. I think being a professional athlete, it's a tremendous privilege. There are very few jobs where you do have that clarity of purpose, where everything you do, both, you know, training and outside of training, is geared towards one thing. You know, we're extremely lucky in that we get to live our craft.
When it comes to racing, what motivates her has changed over the years. When we first met, she was doing the Olympic track with the shorter distance triathlon.
For much of my career, I was focused on the short course racing, IT racing, you know, went to the Olympic Games twice, and I was so focused on performing at that level. After 2016, you know, it was a bad experience. Just, there's no way around it. Like, I had a terrible experience at the Games. I had a terrible experience for the couple of years leading into the Games.
She had put so much of her focus after getting 4th at 2012 Olympics to come back and medal in 2016, that it was medal or nothing counted. And she dug herself in a hole because of that. And unfortunately, was even able to finish the 2016 Olympic race. She had to pull out. And so that was a huge blow to her. And it was one of those situations where she had to step away from the sport.
I had to go back to basics. You know, what got me into triathlon to begin with was I loved the individual sports, but also there was this challenge. I didn't know if I could do it. You know, all across my journey, there were these questions of whether or not I could do something. And I needed to get back to that. So doing Ironman, I was worried that I would fail. I was worried that I would embarrass myself, that I wouldn't be able to do it. And I realized that I didn't care anymore. I didn't care if I wasn't going to be successful at the distance. I just needed to try. Because what had gotten me into the sport was the love of that challenge. And here was this huge challenge for me. He's like, you're such a workhorse. Like, yeah. Does he say I'm a workhorse?
So what's happened in her long course at Kona and Ironman, her career has been very similar to kind of her Olympic career. She knew that Ironman was good for her. Like, she knew that she's just a very tough competitor, that she could do well, but she found herself in 3rd place coming off the bike into the run, moved herself up, was closing on 2nd. Things kind of started falling apart, but she still ended up 4th. Under the old course record time, and you know, I think she realized that she could win the race, and so the following year her goal was to come back to win the race. But I think what happened at Kona to get her to that 4th position really messed with her body and messed with her mind, and I think she just fried herself. And so when she tried to come back, she was so focused on getting on that podium and so focused on doing well, that do or die attitude, that she went to race to race to race, and her body just didn't want to cooperate because her body still hadn't recovered from the Kona effort from the year before. And so got herself to Kona, was at Kona, and a similar thing happened where both mechanical issue to start, and then her body just didn't want to help with her, and her body shut down and ended the day in the hospital.
Arrived.
How are you feeling?
Devastated. Yeah, there's no way around it. I'm devastated. Last year, I raced here well in the heat. I was 4th. And for whatever reason this year, I just can't race in the heat. And it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
It's hard to watch, but it's because she wants it so badly, but just not being able to do what she wants to do, and then realizing that, you know, what's next.
Any athlete, once they get into their 30s, they're starting to think about what's next. Like, I didn't think that I would ever be in a position to want to train to fight for a podium at Kona. Like, that goalpost, that's what makes us good, is that you reach a certain level and you ask, okay, what's next? Now, I'm at the point where I have been trying to reconcile what's next, and I see there are probably only a couple more races left, and I have to look beyond that.
I was very concerned about what after sport meant for Sarah a few years ago, after the Rio Olympics 2016. I was very worried if that was going to be the end of her career, how she would be able to move past that. But I'm glad that she was able to have some great success in long course as well. And so what's next for Sarah? I don't know. All I know is that she's going to keep running, she's going to keep riding her bike, she's going to keep swimming, because that's who she is. And she's that workhorse that just wants to get hooked to the plow and just keep on moving.
I know I will be fine after this. Mostly because I know that I am more than being an athlete. Like, that is only one part of who I am. And while we get really focused on results, we forget that what we discover about ourselves through sport applies to whatever else we do.
Well, I never could quite play the guitar, and while 2020 was a strange year for most of us, it allowed many athletes to actually pursue other passions that they have in life. We saw Amity Rockwell bake countless sourdough loaves. We saw Pete Stetina continue to train. We saw Sarah True get out on her gravel bike. But a few athletes, their life didn't change all that much. And one of the athletes whose life has always been a constant flow state is Colin Strickland.
2020 has been, in general, pretty disruptive of my kind of flow. But the silver lining of these events being canceled, postponed, mostly canceled, is I have this opportunity to work on a lot of projects, not just random projects, but things that I believe will improve the experience for me of bike racing, in that it is kind of a placeless, nomadic lifestyle. I'm using this year as a way to finish these projects, my trailer hauler and my travel trailer, so that I can really make 2021 as much fun as possible. That's the goal.
One thing that I admire most about Colin is his ability in life to continue to master everything that he touches, whether it's guitar, whether it's working on his motorcycles, riding a bike, whatever Colin does, he's a master of doing it. And It's inspiring to see that he's created a life for himself, that he's just doing what he wants and making the most of the time that he has at hand.
My conclusion was this isn't my dream. This is a lot of other people's dream. But riding World Tour at age 32 was not my dream, no matter how glamorous it seemed. Who am I talking? Oh, you, okay. My name is Colin Strickland. I am a bicycle racer and general entertainer. So let's just start the bike. I feel there should be a bit of context for why I got such a ridiculous vehicle. This is what that truck is for. The truck will pull this 35-foot 1955 Spartan Royal Manor house on wheels. It'll be fully furnished, what have you, livable kitchen, bathroom, kind of dining nook, air conditioning, wood stove. Yeah, it'll have everything. So it'll be like life on the road, but comfortably. Kind of like van life, but a much more deluxe version. I live in Austin because I grew up here. It's a bit of a boom town, a little bit of everything. It's where I went to school at the University of Texas. It's where my parents lived most of their life, and it's just one of those places that's hard to leave because there's so much going on. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of good bike racing, a lot of decent riding, and a lot of cool people. And yeah, it's been one of those places I've left many times, traveled out of a lot, but often, well, when I leave, I always am excited to come back home to Austin. No, I've lost it. I had it and I lost it all at once. Cut. I think I'm cut off from the guitar.
Is that your favorite song to play?
I first encountered cycling as a young kid living on a farm out about 30 miles west of Austin. I had 3 older siblings, so everyone had bikes.
I think I had inherited a Huffy from my brother, a little kind of, I guess it would be kind of like a BMX style small kids bike. And we used to ride 1 to 2 miles out the dirt road to the mailboxes. It was kind of the 1 mile marker. Technically, I guess it was a gravel road. So I guess I grew up riding on gravel. Never thought about that. This is the make-out spot. You want to make out, you want a pretty good chance that, you know, you're gonna get it done, you come here. The bike gives me freedom in the sense that it's such a simple companion. It doesn't require fueling. It doesn't require, you know, registration. It doesn't require a massive investment up front. You know, it's pretty resilient. It can take a spill and, you know, pick it right back up, get back on it. A bike is just a simple tool that opens up, you know, that will allow you to, you know, traverse across especially an urban environment pretty efficiently. And it's the perfect complement to the human body in terms of mobility and efficiency. You know, second only maybe to wings or something. We'll see. I'd summarize my cycling career in probably 3 distinct chapters. Chapter 1 being racing domestic road, local road, starting as a Cat 5, working my way up to Cat 2, Cat 1, simultaneously working full-time, doing environmental consulting. So really just like putting my foot in the water, you know, enjoying the bike racing experience like most people do, just in it for my weekend fun, fitness, the camaraderie of it, you know. And little did I know at the time, I like definitely had an affinity for the training and the suffering part that you need. But at that time, it was really just complete hobby because it was kind of thrilling and it was a great challenge. And that chapter closed around, let's say 2016, when I got a call moving into the next chapter, which would be the Fixie chapter, Red Hook Crit, etc. I got a call from Chris Reichert at Specialized who said, hey, we have a spot on a 2-man Specialized team that is, we're preparing to race Red Hook Crit, which was this incredible event that had 4 races in Brooklyn, London, Barcelona, Milan, Italy. So it was an incredible way to travel the world, see, you know, beautiful cities in Europe and the US, and meet, you know, an international host of Fixie fools who are still friends to this day. And that chapter was just like kind of my first taste of just like bright lights and kind of cameras. I was literally just having fun with it, completely convinced that I was far too old to kind of hit that trajectory, that ramp to get up into any kind of cycling profession, career. Oh, Jesus. It's just the end.
Did you miss it?
Fuck yeah, Red Hook was so much fun. Yeah, anyway. Good times. Good times in Europe. And moving into the next chapter, which would be the gravel saga. 2017 was when I first struck out and participated in some local gravel races, like this race called the Castell Grind, which is about an hour and a half north of Austin, these beautiful roads. And it was my first experience with this format of racing that was really challenging, beautiful courses where the surface is kind of much more engaging than a road race, where you are having to navigate lines across kind of a shifting terrain. And also just seeing the scene where the riders, most of which I had never encountered, were just there just for the fun of it. They weren't there to try to extract a result. They were there to participate, to hang out with each other, to like participate in this kind of celebrations, like cycling festival almost. It's not really an extractive process as much as a experiential process. It's a great formula, and I could see that it would grow. I dare say I could see that it would grow into something much bigger than just a lot of 40-plus riders meeting out, in Castell, Texas, and enjoying some gravel grinding. Yeah, it just had the right combination to kind of catch on fire. The day before Kanza 200, we were at the Allied tent, my teammate Kevin and I, and ran into a couple of the EF riders were kind of moving around the expo. Said what's up to Taylor Phinney, had a brief hello with him. Fast forward, had success at the race, won the race. Got a text from Taylor the next day after winning the race on my way home saying, "Hey, have you ever considered riding World Tour?" I said, "No, not at all." Not really, no. Never really occurred to me. Didn't think that door would ever be even, slightly ajar. So yeah, then then I was thinking, well, something must be up. And then later that day, or perhaps 2 days after Kanza, I got an email from Jonathan Vaughters, director of EF, director Sportif, who said, "Hey, same question." I said, same answer. No, I have not, because again, for all the reasons, chapters 1 and 2 had nothing to do with World Tour racing. Thought that door had closed. But, he proposed the idea of riding for EF as a classic specialist, and then, moving into my kind of familiar terrain of US gravel events in the summer, which sounded like an absolute dream schedule, because if there were any World Tour races that have piqued my interest, that I imagine I would potentially have a chance of doing well at, it would be classics format versus super steep, climby, descendy stuff. I would do well in the long, flat races, in theory. We may never know. Anyway, so we started a negotiation, conversation. He was serious about it, I found out, which was pretty amazing. And yeah, that process lasted about 2 months, and it just went from being a really kind of a dream offer of, riding for EF, retaining Red Bull relationship, and getting this dream schedule and getting all the exposure, going to Europe, living in Girona, which would be amazing. It kind of evolved into the contract being, severing all contract or all existing relationships, including Red Bull, and it would be 1 year, and there's just so many variables that have to go perfectly right in order to have any kind of significant result, much less result, really just impact on a race. Such a huge learning curve, and over 1 year, and at my ripe age of 32, it just wasn't a really good gamble. It's a gamble no matter what, and it could win big if if I won a classic or something, or podiumed at a classic, that would be huge. But realistically, it's a numbers game, and it just didn't seem like a good bet. And I have such a good thing going on right now. I have so much fun. I have so much freedom that my conclusion was, this isn't my dream. This is there's a lot of other people's dream. But riding World Tour at age 32 was not my dream. out in far west Texas, it just is a different pace. The landscape, the lack of dense population just gives you kind of a sensation of just peacefulness and some form of isolation compared to being in a big city, boomtown like Austin. It's nice to come out for, you know, that shifting gears into just a more extensive, expansive. You're kind of focused on the horizon instead of everything right in front of you. So it kind of slows you down, and it's a great place to go out and just knock out long rides without the distraction and the busyness of town.
Blue sky and linen thread.
When it comes to the question of why I choose to specialize in the discipline of endurance gravel and these sometimes stupid long events that just push you to your very core and like break you down to just your essence, I enjoy that emptying sensation because it's almost this feeling that you get to kind of build yourself back anew after every intense, brutal, long race. I would like people to know that this was not the goal. It was not the goal to have, you know, sit in front of cameras and tell my story, really. The goal was just following what made me happy and what kind of fueled my fire. And in this case, that was in the sport of cycling. I recognized something that it did for me that really pulled out something that I liked to see in myself, again, just pushing myself to the absolute limit. And it was a fun and exciting adventure for me. So I just kept pursuing what kind of made me tick and just followed my nose and followed the kind of the path of fun and adventure and fulfillment. And that led me to leaning against this loading dock here today. And it wasn't really a preconceived notion of I want to be a pro cyclist. It was just doing what I loved to do, and you know, just following your nose and following your passion, and here's where I ended up.
If we learned one thing in 2020, it was that having a higher purpose as an athlete is important. Races can be taken away, events can be taken away, but the one thing that can never be taken away from us is the passion to get out there and ride our bikes, to share it with other people, and to inspire all those around us to actually embrace this beautiful sport of endurance athletics. No one does that better than Sarah Sturm and her realization that racing isn't all about results.
I mean, I think that's kind of like, in some ways, what saved my trajectory of being a cyclist. So at that moment where I was like pushing my bike up this stupid mountain for hours, I was like, man, this is like the most challenging thing I've done, and no one cares if I finish. And it was like, man, I actually really love to like suffer and push myself, but I don't love the pressure necessarily of like having to finish at a certain time or in front of a certain person. And so I feel like that's kind of like this notion that saved me on like the mountain bike or like just cycling in general, the like idea that you can actually just go and ride and push yourself, and there's no outcome other than the satisfaction that you've gained from the journey of it.
Yeah, racing isn't all about results. There's so much more to what we do as athletes than race and stand on podiums. It's something that has brought all of us in the Frontiers campaign together. We ultimately become better humans through endurance sports, and that's the message that I think so many of us found over the last 12 months.
at the end of the day, like, all you have are relationships in this world, in this life, and no one really cares about like how fast you are, how well you do at a race. It's like, are you a kind person, or like, can you like sit down and have a conversation with somebody, or like be humble and be intelligent and calculated and kind. Are you picking up Mr. Cowboy? Oh, is it? Gosh, sorry, I'm just yelling.
Yeah, really.
Cool.
And then you'll be looking at Ansel the whole time.
Okay.
Hey, do you want to come sit? Good boy.
Does that screw you guys up? Am I looking at you? Okay. Yeah, so I got into cycling when I decided to go to Fort Lewis College. So it was kind of serendipitous in a way. Like, I knew I wanted to live in the mountains and be amongst mountain sports. I was like obsessed with ice climbing, and I had never done any of that. And so cycling was like, yeah, I'll try it. And I just kind of found my group of friends. I was really bad, like really bad. That was where I met my friends and my group of people that I connected with. And I guess I just kind of got swept away in it all.
I've made fun of her already too much for her bad cornering and stuff. Like, she was a bad mountain biker early on, so I don't want to go there again. My name is Chad Cheney, and I'm the Durango Devo co-founder and coach now, and I do their social media, so I'm kind of all in on the junior cycling program in town, and then I'm also a coach up at Fort Lewis College. Yeah, I first met Sarah on the Fort Lewis cycling team because she was going to school there and riding for the teams. And my first impression was she's just a little bundle of energy, a lot of questions, giggly, and knew all the different kinds of cycling disciplines, but just wanted to be a part of that kind of scene and culture.
Let's see, my cycling career. It's kind of two-part. Like, I started in college, and I was always a lot stronger on the road, like just naturally. But I never really like felt like I fit in with the scene. Like, everyone was like really serious and like paid a lot of attention to gear and I don't know, all the things that I like wasn't naturally good at paying attention to. And then I remember like Dylan asking me if I was having fun. And which sounds like a simple thing, but like when you get swept up in everything, the equipment, the racing, the locations, the people, you just forget that you're actually supposed to be enjoying yourself. And my answer was like a pretty quick no.
I think she just got to the point where she was kind of burned on the whole thing. And so I was like, all right, well, here's what you need to do. Like, you should probably just quit racing for a little while and like only ride your bike if it's really something that you want to do.
And it never had anything to do with money. Like, I was never trying to make money or like make it. I just, I think I was just trying to have a good time, and I just got swept away. So when I realized that I really wasn't having a good time, I shifted my life and I put my focus into my career as a graphic designer. And I think that was really good. It was really important to do that and know what it felt like to like get to go ride my bike after work instead of like train. The more I like dive into cycling, the more I realize that there's like this crazy overlap with like bikes and art and design and creativity and expression and adventure and like all of these new ways to be a creative thinker. And so that's been like probably the most exciting thing out of everything. Like, I can kind of see how everything is overlapping and making it all more interesting and fun.
Sarah has some crazy inner driving force that you wouldn't really understand just from having a conversation with her normally.
You can really challenge yourself out here without a finish line. Like, no one cares if you finish, and that was like a pretty profound thing for me. It just looks like an oil painting or something. A, like, really well done oil painting. There's something that like changes in your brain and you're just like, whoa! Like, I mean, if we were racing, the race doesn't seem to matter. It's like where you are matters more. 'Cause like, look at it. You're like, wow, I am very small. I think that's very small. I think that's what's cool about it. Because you don't really get that anymore. You feel very big because you have so much information in your palm, and now it's like role reversal. You're like, nope, you're teeny. Well, I got home at 9 last night and I got a text from the Devo girls and they said to check the front porch and they had made me a Norman with bread and raisins, and then they said be careful of the toothpicks. So here's his head, here's his little raisin eyes, and there's his toothpicks.
Like, the happiest I see her and the most like fulfilled is when she's coaching the Devo girls. Like, that is a huge thing for her. I think she just always wanted and had, you know, great mentors growing up. Like, our mom is freaking awesome, and like just being able to give back to her community, I think, is like what makes it like not seem like it's just like she's just an athlete or it's just a sport, you know? Like, it's a lot more meaning for her.
Sarah has always been a mentor. She really genuinely loves hanging out with the girls that she coaches in Devo.
Yeah, it just kind of changes you, you know, like we've had a lot of superstars do big things, like go to the Olympics or win this or that, and then they come back and coach with us, and we're like, what? That doesn't sound normal. Like, it's not normal for superstars to kind of, in their prime, go like, yeah, I'll coach. You know, like Michael Jordan didn't like coach a basketball team in the off season. You know, it was all about him. So it's totally not normal, but it's like this new thing that people are realizing that just kind of clears your head and resets your training mind, and you just, you know, you give to someone else. So yeah, to re-answer your question, I think it was, you know, in those questioning years of professional mountain biking when she started coaching and mentoring the young girls, and she's been doing it ever since.
Life's too short to get it all right. First time around, you better not mess up. Want it all again, I want a second chance, 'cause this time around.
End of the day, the reason that mentorship and leading is more important to me than like being inspirational. Like, inspiration, I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, inspiration is really important in this world, but we have a lot of that, and inspiration to me is like something from afar. Like you're seeing something in front of you and you're like, wow, that's amazing, or this person's amazing. And it seems really removed. But leadership and mentorship is more valuable, I think, to me, because it's hands-on. Like you get to work with somebody, you get to ride next to them, you get to talk to them about the things in their life, and it's a lot more connected. And I think you can do a lot more in this world with leadership and mentorship than just being this like aspirational, inspirational caricature. At the end of the day, like, that all fades really quickly. Without any of this, without the lights and the finish lines and the media, like, all you have are relationships in this world, in this life. And to me, like, I've always really liked connecting with people, and bikes have always been a way that I get to do that. And that's what I want to maintain. There's a lot of different ways to pick apart cycling and be the best, and I think you have to decide like what the best means to you before you pick a path. And so once I define that, and once like young people can figure out like which way they want to go, hopefully more start choosing the multifaceted realm and seeing that you can make a career out of being a really decent bike racer, but also do all these other things. I think that's going to be really exciting to see like what these young people do with this world. Hopefully they clean it up.
Well, reflecting on the past definitely helps us prepare for the future. I think we all learned a lot in 2020. As athletes, it often is through the most difficult times that we learn the most about ourselves. And so many things have changed over the last 12 months, but one thing has remained the same. We all love getting out there, and as athletes and as humans, we need to be flexible and adapt to the environment around us. But that doesn't mean we can't find new ways and new frontiers to explore. So with that, folks, I hope you enjoyed this long form of the Frontiers episode. If anything, we just scratched the surface of what is to come. So stay tuned. There are many more Frontiers episodes coming up. Until then, stay safe, and I'll catch you soon.
Oh, I wish I knew how to use this.
Blah, blah. So I'm sitting here mumbling. Hello, Christian.
He always chooses blue.
Take the blue.
I would be the motor inside the frame.
I don't know, what's the point of this interview?
This is it, right here.
I'm happy to answer more.
What was it like out there?
Yourself frozen.